hot chocolate tonight. Yeah. Or today. Or this morning. Whenever you're watching it. Usually it's at 3 p.m. U.S. Eastern premiere time. So let's say good evening or good afternoon. When does the evening happen? Is it like 5? Because nighttime's a lot later. Because nighttime can also include the a.m. You know what I mean? There's a lot to discuss. Hey, welcome back once again. It is time for the golden age of DC Comics, 365 days, where I take this well-loved hardcover coffee table book given to me about 2 decades ago by one of my best friends. This has been surfing my coffee table ever since, providing me with a constant source of comic book shop-style conversations, the kind I wish to recreate today here with you. So pull up a chair to the coffee table and bring a cup of whatever. I mean, I got this mug in Chicago as a souvenir for myself. And I'm having a hot chocolate right now. So that's what I'm bringing to the coffee table. You bring whatever you want. Let me know in the comments section what we're all drinking at the coffee table today. I've got a Ghirardelli dark chocolate, hot chocolate. This stuff's good. It goes very, very quickly. It does. I'm a sucker for chocolate. I really am. I'm using this book for its intended purpose. It's a 365 days book. So we're going to open up to today's date, which is December the 8th. We're going to look at some comic book art of an antediluvian age. We're going to read the blurb, and then we're going to talk about comic books. And we're going to talk about comic books every day for the rest of the year. You got it. Trigger warning for anyone with sensitivities about, I guess, it's if you're tuned into comic books and you know who Warren Ellis is, and if you disapprove of him, you might want to skip today's show. That's it. Yeah, I mean, we'll get to Warren Ellis when we get to Warren Ellis. He's one of my favorite comics creators, comics writers, and I don't have an opinion of his current what's going on, but some people do, and if you're put off by that, you just might want to skip today's episode, because we're going to be focusing on something that Warren Ellis wrote, and it's superhero stuff, because all this superhero stuff started right here with Action Comics #1 in June of 1938, the first appearance of Superman, and thus began our American mythology of these superheroes, these fictional, quasi-deities. I mean, they have all quasi because they have all the appearances of it, but they are not it. So, yeah, let's get to it. We're going to open up to today's date, December the 8th. Let's see who we've got. Ooh, well, it's the All-American Girl, Liberty Bell. Now it can be told, the amazing story of Seasick Mikado. And Mikado is definitely pretty much maybe of Asian origin, because those were kind of American, that we would call that Chinese food menu lettering font, I think. And how it's kind of like in bad taste these days. But, I love Chinese food and I love Chinese people. And it was of a different time. And so, yeah, it's Liberty Girl, the Liberty Bell, the All-American Girl. Well, for 1942, sure. Or 1946, this is story by Don Cameron, art by Chuck Winter, from Star Spangled Comics number 52, January of 1946. So that means World War II has been over for a couple of months. And Wonder Woman was certainly DC's most successful female character. But she was not the only one fighting the good fight. Liberty Bell, shown here symbolically kicking the stuffing out of the Japanese fleet, was a product of World War II and didn't last long after it ended. Born Libby Lawrence, she became the foe of the Axis powers to avenge her father's death, and was convinced that her secret identity was impenetrable, even though she eschewed a mask or an even eyeglasses. Well, it worked for the Flash. Indeed, yeah. Liberty Bell went into combat like that. Indeed, yeah. Not much to say about Liberty Bell, honestly, that we have not said before. So, I dubbed today a slow news day. Slow news day, featuring Tales from my spinner rack. That's arena echo, you know. I did the trigger warning about Warren Ellis, and I meant it. Yeah, we're going to talk about a Warren Ellis comic book. I'm actually a big fan of Warren Ellis. I was there witnessing that internet community of his 20 years ago, and it was a bit ribald. And it was adult, and it involved consent. I'll tell you that much. And I also know that he had a common law wife back home in England where they were raising their then teenage daughter. So anyone to have engaged in a relationship with Mr. Ellis and recently called him out on that and its inequities, you had to have known that he had a wife and kid at home. So what were you expecting in your relationship with basically a married man? Cui bono? Who profits? I'm not being judgmental. I'm just more of like, he's had the ability to be published taken away from him in the post-Me Too movement. Was it? I don't know. And then this is where we get into the gray areas of morality and consent and human sexuality and people's relationships. I mean, where does general interest end and someone's life begin? I mean, aren't people allowed their lives and their secrets and their consents and their affairs even if they want? But sure, he totally maybe did he use it? Who knows? I mean, let's hope everyone can be satisfied in this, and in the future, in the near future, we can once again see new Warren Ellis stories. I would buy them. I totally would. I mean, I wish he would like do the Indiegogo route. I mean, I get Gemini mailers, and I crowdfund. I support crowdfunding comic books, and I love the quality of these books. And I would love to see like if he could. I mean, he's got to do what he's got to do to make things right, or but also he shouldn't be. He should be able to fly his trade and let the market speak on whether or not Warren Ellis comic books can still sell. I think they could, seeing like the success stories of like a lot of the Indiegogo people. And but I want to talk today about one of his something that he could probably do today on an independent thing. If he could even make his own website, he could and hire his own artists and colorists and letterers, and he could do it himself. I mean, there is a proven successful recipe for that kind of self-publication, for and especially starring the comic creators, writers, and artists of the last generation. We have a push towards modernity in comic books to tell stories with modern audiences in mind and modern values. That's part of the change, but also a lot of the old like boys' locker room mentality has been pushed out of comics, and but they still exist on their on the creator-owned Indiegogo platforms or Kickstarter, or something like Eric July, and he had his own website. You know what I mean? That takes a lot of liquid, and so but that you have these methods such as Indiegogo and Kickstarter that you can, if you can fulfill, you can get your own. You can be your own comic book company. And so Avatar Press made a lot of different Warren Ellis comic books in the early 2000s. I love these comic books. Avatar Press is an independent American comic book publisher founded in 1996 by William A. Christensen. It's based in Rantoul, Illinois. Avatar is most notable for publishing bad girl comics such as Faust, Pandora, Helena, Lookers, The Ravening, and Brian Pulido's Lady Death. And he's got one of these, direct to customers, successful. Wow. I mean, he's a success story when it comes to self-publication. The Avatar has had a strong web. I'm reading from, you guessed it, the wiki. A strong web presence anchored by Warren Ellis's Freak Angel web comics, and the company has also licensed comic book adaptations of science fiction and horror movies such as RoboCop, Night of the Living Dead, and Friday the 13th. And yeah, I wonder if they're doing anything. I mean, geez, I haven't seen an Avatar Press comic book. Warren Ellis did a lot with them. He's got this, and so did Garth Ennis as well. Yeah, I mean, Rob Liefeld, Jonathan Hickman, Alan Moore did a bunch of things too. That's great, and yeah, I mean, but Warren Ellis had a lot going on with Avatar, and he could create the stories that he wanted to, which were gruesome, sometimes political. He would. I like the conceit in a Warren Ellis story. It would be historical up to a point, and you would have a new interception point, creating a new timeline. So you take it prima facie that everything's normal, and this history being the world until Warner von Braun doesn't create for NASA, he creates for the British government. And that's the divergence in history, separating our world from theirs. And that begins a new history. And so there's the British space program sends up a rocket with 3 astronauts, two men and a woman, and they come back fused as one horrific creation due to the cosmic rays, perhaps. This is obviously a Fantastic Four reference. But what happens, though, is that Britain, by having this super being that they call Morrigan Logus, which is very, those are ancient pre-Celtic and English of the Isles these are gods of history, of prehistory, of that culture and of that part of the Britons, of that part of the world, non-continental Europe. So, and that begins super gods. I mean, Morrigan Logus. So, I'm going to read from you this is an essay written at the time of publication by Warren himself. I love Warren's use of words, his imagination. He's a futurist. He liked to imagine cities of the future and lived in places of the future as well. Wonderful. Just, and he's talking about super gods, and super god here. So but what happens though is that Morrigan Logus, this 3-faced super being, creates an international race of it's like the space race, but with superhumans. It's like the nuclear the race for nuclear weapons, but instead of having it be the space race or nuclear weapons, it's about creating a national superhero. So the United States create a national superhero. They rebuilt the body of a U.S. pilot who crashed, and he's a cyborg, and so this is actually and his name's Jerry Craven, and this is the U.S. super god, and maybe Craven might have something to do with capitalism. I don't know, but what it is, it's definitely an oblique reference to the $6 Million Man, and Steve Austin, that that cyborg superhero. So Jerry Craven is a damaged human, literally. He's post-traumatic as well, because he's dealing with the memories of his own death and resurrection. So he's slightly kind of not there. He's just really, yeah. It's issue 1 was released in 2009, and Super God is a 5-issue limited series, published by Avatar Press, created by Warren Ellis, art by Gary Gastini, and it's really graphic, and it's really goes for the throat. Like Russia has their own superhero, China, India, and wow, India, they look to recreate Krishna, the god of the Bhagavad Gita. It's so. Here's Warren in his own words. Okay, Super God is the story of what an actual superhuman arms race might be like. Here's the simple thing to imagine: humans have been fashioning their own gods with their own hands since the dawn of our time on Earth. We can't help ourselves. Fertility figures, brazen idols, vast chalk etchings, carvings, myths and legends, science fiction writers generating science fiction religions from whole cloth. It's not such a leap to conceive of the builders of nuclear weapons and particle accelerators turning their attentions to the oldest of human pursuits, dress it up as superhuman defense, and discovering the limits of the human body as transhumanism and posthumanism. And yeah, it's just and it starts with an oblique Clash reference. It's like it's London's burning, and there's Simon Redden, and he's a British scientist, and he's on a phone. He's trying to contact someone named Tommy over in the States, and it starts off with saying, "Tommy, can you hear me?" So it's like there's already a built-in rock and roll reference, but London burning by the Clash, you know what I mean? It says like, because London is burning, and I live by the river, and dun 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 dun. Yeah, so this is very British in flavor as well, because Warren Ellis is British. A lot of the body of his work is very British in flavor, and I love it too, because he's like Monty Python on steroids, and Doctor Who, if Doctor Who had no morality. Doctor Who might not have some, but Doctor Who has like a Gallifreyan morality, does he not? Let's leave it like that. But it's a tale of superhumans, and about losing your humanity to become a superhuman. And this is part of a trilogy that he did too. There was also No Hero, which he did. This is the house ad for No Hero. Again, set in an alternate Earth, where in the 1950s that fused with social justice and the civil rights movement, that a group of superhumans came to being in San Francisco, and they were counterculture, and they were outlaw, and they fought for civil rights with superpowers, and began its own superhero parallel Earth, steeped, in that. And then there's Black Summer, which has another team of post-human superheroes, augmented with powers, and what happens is the leader of them, the highly moral leader of this team, deletes the leader of the elected leader of the United States and his advisors on a charge of war crimes that he came across evidence, and summarily deleted the entire White House. Yeah, and then begins this. His entire team gets hunted down, so it becomes like he's like the Superman. His name's John Orris, and he's the Superman. Well, so there's a Batman, Tom Noir, who's the detective, and they're called the Seven Guns, and these are like really, really awesome superhero stories, because it talks about there's an intersection of real life into our superhero stories, and a lot of it started with Warren Ellis. It's just that no one can really write as well as Warren Ellis. There's just a lot of just academic, a dissemination of an academic paradigm without any nuance. It's on the nose. Hey, this is what I learned in my gender studies class. Here, I'm going to write this as my dialogue. That's not storytelling. But Warren Ellis was able to do that. He did actually a lot for. So there's a saying that what Warren Ellis's current situation, he's being eaten by his own, and maybe even rightfully so. Maybe he's got it coming and he deserved it. Yeah, and and I just wanted to say too that each one of these comics, these were $3.99 a piece, and I will tell you that according to the Overstreet Price Guide, at Super God, near mint, 9.2 near mint, are worth $4 each. So this is literally retained its cover price, but it did not gain in price too. So I mean, geez, if we look at ye old inflation calculator, that in 2009, $4.90. What was this? $3.99. Yeah, let's check it out. $3.99. It's $5.63. So I don't even get the value of like 5.5 cents. It didn't gain anything. Wow. I mean, I'm just. That's a good conversation in itself, and it's part of that's part of what I'm going to be doing next year with next year's comic book talk, daily comic book talk. When I'm bagging and boarding, I'm going to look up its value in the Overstreet Price Guide, which like what I just did here, and so yeah, Super God ends badly. Yeah, it's a kind of bleak and hopeless, but we've been talking about comic books, and thank you for coming along for the ride. We've been talking about comic books, and we're going to talk about comic books every day for the rest of the year. Please like and subscribe. I would love to earn your subscription. 3 p.m. U.S. Daily, U.S. Eastern Daily. And come aboard with us. Like and subscribe. Namaste. Good luck. God bless. And we will see you tomorrow in those funny pages. Cheers. Bye-bye.